I just want to point.
Yeah, I was going to say in Australia it goes up. It goes right straight up, right? All right.
Oh, we're just going to get. We're not even.
We're just diving in here. I went live because I feel like the listeners need to hear this conversation. Mike is essentially describing Australia as a third world country. It's not. Welcome to the Gooners pod, where there may or may not be a sixth person joining us today. Depending on if a birth happens or not.
Yeah,
I just want to point out one thing. Max said he would do anything for his wife. That includes raising another man's child, by the way.
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's nice. And
I mean, sorry, Max. I had to get one more dig in there. I'm sorry.
We want the other man's child. We want the other man's child born on this podcast. We try to bring unique content to our viewers. I don't think any Arsenal. I mean, there's a lot of common things going on. A lot of people kind of borrowing each other's ideas, and that's fine. It's all good. But no one's had a baby on pod yet. And
we've been the reason babies have been made.
That's true. That is true. Two of Mike Hernandez's 46 kids were made made during this podcast. But that's neither here nor there. Like Andy said, welcome to the Gooners pod. I didn't even get to play the intro.
I'm doing that. No, I am. We'll have to play it.
We're not going to do it.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
We're contractually bound to see my naked body on top of a dolphin once per podcast, so we've now gotten that out of the way.
I wouldn't know what to do with myself if it were a Gooners pod and I didn't see that. So
yeah,
we're sponsored by Water. What's the place down there? Water World.
Broken Water. Broken Water Dolphin Farm. So I don't know about you guys. I've been up for 30 straight hours, and this is not helping. But at least we're finally in an environment where what making no sense is fine. Jesus, come on, stop playing around.
You're ranting. Are you not ranting?
No, I wasn't ranting. I'm doing my famed intros. So full house tonight. And eventually we'll probably get around to talking about another great Arsenal game as I see our listener numbers dropping through the floor like broken water. Arsenal won, Burnley won. Let's go around and meet our panel if Andy would stop pushing buttons. It's like
button for that.
He misses being on the podcast so much. He's just pushing all the buttons that he can to get it back. There you go. First of all, joining us, Owen, always good to see you. Andy, as rare as it is that training shirt that everyone hates?
I love it.
I don't mind it. I like the busy looking ones, but there's I don't know. Some of the fashionistas might not like it, but back on the pod again. They can back on the pod again. Tanner, aka the Bearded Gooner. The Bearded Gooner, I guess, was taken. But
Twitter limits the characters in the name.
Oh, that's so the one. Okay, how did you pick that name? I don't understand how that is applicable to you.
It's the Abraham Lincoln that I actually have shaved onto my nutsack. So,
all right. Well, that makes sense.
Am I allowed to say that on? I figure I'm allowed. I think I'm allowed.
No, that is the one word you can't say.
That's the one thing we can't talk about.
We don't. Okay. We don't have we have a sponsorship with the people who don't like for us to say things about scrotums. You wear two hats, even though you're not wearing one today. You head up the conglomerate called BG Media, traded as BGM on the NASDAQ. So congratulations on that.
Standard and Poor's.
Standard and really Poor's. Yeah. He was also handpicked out of 300 applicants to host the Same Old Arsenal USA podcast, which hosts on Tuesdays it airs on Tuesdays at 9:45 p.m. I gotta say, I like watching it. It's right on a perfect time for me here on the East Coast of the U.S. Good thing going, good chemistry between you and Ryan and Rohan and Stan. But I think my favorite episode that you've ever done was last week.
It was a lot of fun last week. We had
easily.
I
enjoyed watching that so much.
Yeah. Did you have fun watching it so much?
I watched it 10 times after we finished recording, and it was great.
Is it ever weird for any of you guys to hear yourselves or see yourselves actually doing this? It's a little weird for me. Like whenever I watch shows back, I'm like, whoa.
Do you ever hear my accent? Of course, it fucking sounds weird.
Andy's done probably 220 of the 250 podcasts we've done or so in our careers. I don't think he's ever watched or listened back to a second of any single one of them.
I used to. I don't anymore.
No. I think back, the first 10 we used to edit, my voice drove me crazy. So I
Drives
just
me crazy
said,
too.
Thanks.
I said to Mike, get your shit together because I'm sick of editing your bullshit out of these pods. And we took a 10-week course, and now we're here where we are.
Yeah,
right.
We've made it to the height of
what a waste of money that course was.
Tons of waste of money, but anyway, it's a great show, so check it out.
Thanks for the kind words, man. I appreciate that.
And also joining us tonight, breaking his Gooners pod duck. Speaking of, wow, I didn't even have to do that. What chemistry we have here now? Normally, I would have had that all queued up, but I didn't even think about it. But breaking his duck,
9.
all the way from deepest, darkest Australia. From the Arsebros Rantcast, where I just found out, Owen, they're not actually bros at all.
That's a fucking letdown.
It's Max. What's up, Max?
Hey guys,
anything going on in your house?
No, just my wife upstairs in labour at the moment, but nothing that isn't going to take less time than a podcast, I guess. Who knows? It's my first one. We're just throwing dice. We're just throwing dice here and seeing what comes up.
It's International Women's Day, which promotes self-dependence and independence.
Careful,
and
Owen.
I'm very promotive of that. No, but it's good to see that Rand's taking it seriously, Max is taking it seriously and offering absolutely no fucking help whatsoever to a struggling woman.
We're gonna keep.
Tuesday there, that day's over. So women are back to being second class in Australia.
Wow.
If she had gone into labour yesterday, it would have been flowers and foot rubs. Today, you're on your own, Victoria.
Yeah.
Yeah. It will keep us surprised as to the dilation levels, and we'll put them on the little screen that goes downstairs or down at the bottom of the pod. So Max, how did you pick your name? We talked about how Bearded Gooner did, but
yeah, Arsebros started off as me and my older brother.
No, I'm talking about Max.
Basically, Mum and Dad liked dogs, and every dog was called Max when I was growing up. And then they named my brother Toby, so 2 for 2. 2 of the biggest dog names they possibly could find. And off we went.
Your younger brother's name is Rufus.
That until you were 4, they were like, come here, boy.
This is both depressing and completely 100% true. 100% true. I was actually called Jason for the first 24 hours after I was born. But while my mum was in hospital, she
came out with one of those hockey masks on your face.
No, she read the local newspaper while she was in bed in hospital, and there was a guy had jumped off what we call the 18 Arches. It's like an old viaduct. And he jumped off and killed himself, and his name was Owen. And she says, "That's a lovely name." So I'm named after a guy that committed suicide. Yeah.
Are you actually his reincarnated self? Maybe,
possibly.
Did he do a podcast?
That's why my face looks so fucked up.
I was supposed to be named Tony, and as my dad was walking to fill out the birth certificate, his best friend, who was named Andrew, he said, "I bet you wouldn't change the name," and he did. So I'm named after my dad's best friend from childhood, and my mom was just like, "Whatever."
I was supposed to be named Elizabeth.
That's how much the name meant to my family.
I was supposed to be named Elizabeth, and 2 weeks after I was born, my parents discovered I had a penis, so they changed it at the last minute. But thank God for that.
Pity that they didn't hold out, because now you've got 2 massive tits. Sorry, I had to be done. That's
the name of the podcast, 2 Massive Tits.
Well, no, it's 5 massive tits today. Anyway, we've never had a guest on from Australia before. That's like in Southeast South America, right? I'm not good with geography. I haven't talked to Tom for a while.
Keep going south, mate. Strange animals, platypuses, kangaroos. Toilet water goes the other way.
When was the last time you wore a mask?
Victoria is like the socialist state, People's Republic of China here. So we're in and out of mask constantly. Yeah. We were locked down for 130 days straight.
You came on late, Andy. You were the last one to log on, but he was wearing a mask when he came onto the podcast originally. So
I thought Australia was like normal life as it goes, or is it just certain parts of Australia?
Normal life if your governor isn't a communist dictator. But we'll leave that for other podcasts.
I want to be a part of that podcast, by the way.
So is it Arsebros or Arsebros? Because I mean, like in the mid '80s in England, there was this boy band of brothers called Bros, and they sucked, and you guys don't. So I'm assuming it's Bros.
So like Super Mario Bros, Super Mario Brothers. The old it used to be Super Mario Bros. That's where I got the thing from, and we were Arsebros for a really long time. Until I lost my
Nintendo's going to sue your ass now.
Yeah. Until I lost.
They're coming after you.
My second Twitter account for the same reason as being shut down with my first Twitter account, and I had to change it to Arse Brothers because every time I wrote in Arse Bros, Twitter picked it up and booted me off. And so apparently, if you call Tim Sherwood a cunt repeatedly, you get kicked off Twitter.
Yeah. I was like because it's the name that you gave it. I'm sure it had nothing to do with anything else, but.
No. It was I hate Tim Sherwood with a passion, and I every time I see his face, it just does me in. So then we naturally the Twitter became the Arse Brothers, and we were kind of the Arse Brothers to start with. So anyway, now we've got a whole conglomerate of people from different countries. We've got
you got
people in America.
You got Scunny from Scunthorpe. You got Ryan from Connecticut. Are you like looking out for someone from like Madagascar, and then somebody from Vietnam, and you just got just about the whole thing completed? You should do that. It should be a continental show.
We just absorbed degenerates because when we started off the podcast, like early on, we were actually intentionally trying to be the rudest podcast online, and our like names of our shows were like, Unai Emery's elephantitis testicles, Alex Iwobi's.
We're now hanging on every word.
Right angle dick episode. And then basically like these different people from around the world, Scunnies and Ryans and Mikes, they just started flooding to this podcast that no one listened to. And we're in the comments every single day, sitting there listening to it and commenting on it. And we just ended up expanding and saying, well, if you guys are down for this, then we're down for releasing content that 90% of people think is horrific and disgusting and 10% of people can't live without.
Andy, I told you that someone else would rip off our marketing plan eventually.
I was about to say, it sounds really familiar.
See, I remember the presentation to the podcast council, and this is a lot of what we put together. But and there was an Arsenal game this weekend. I think we've avoided it about as long as we possibly can. And since you're the guy with the questions, let's dig into this. Arsenal won, Burnley won.
I love how our podcasts are always formatted. It's like an absolute vulgar start, some common sense, sort of sensible discussions about the match in between, and then a nightmare end again. But let's get the sensible part over. So we'll jump in as we always do. Tanner, with the starting 11, probably the most notable thing on the starting 11 team sheet was the return of Callum Chambers. I'm not sure whether you or anybody else expected that, but what did you make of the starting 11 as a whole, and Callum Chambers' return in particular?
Chambers' return shocked me. I still don't know if I know why he started, if Cedric and or Bellerin are both injured, or if it was just getting him some match time. Is it, putting him in the shop window for the summer? But I was utterly stunned to see his name on there. And quite frankly, by the time it was all said and done, I think he's the guy that probably didn't have a shitter of a game for us. For a guy that hasn't played a whole lot recently, I can't even remember the last time he played, to be honest with you. To play all 90, didn't really put a foot wrong.
It was back during the Carter administration.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Like 79, something like that.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, no, I think the lineup, nothing in the lineup really shocked me, only because
I'm just not shocked at this point with anything that Arteta does with his starting 11 match to match. He's so unpredictable with this that at this point, if the five of us showed up at the starting lineup on Thursday against Olympiacos, would anybody be shocked? I mean, okay, that might be a stretch, but you get
that's a great comment from Daniel. I mean, that's my personal view on it. It made me happy to see Chambers there only because for whatever reason Cedric was rested. It just shows that I said we'd learn everything about whether Cedric was being favored over Bellerin or whether Bellerin was just being rotated in the leads in the Leicester game, and this kind of showed us that even if Cedric was healthy enough to play, I don't think Bellerin, or even if he wasn't healthy enough to play, Bellerin isn't going to play. I think that bodes well. Of course, it'll turn out that maybe he's just giving Bellerin a super rest so that he can play 270 minutes against Olympiacos and Spurs. And then we'll all go back to square one.
But before Chambers' injury, I'm looking at it now. He played 20 the first 20 matches of last season before he did his cruciate in. And if I remember correctly, he wasn't awful.
No, he was
arguably our best player. He was arguably our best player for a period of time. Very technical, very good stand-up defender.
You know what's funny about that, real quick, is ironically the year before that, when Holding did his ACL, he was arguably our best player.
Right.
Well, it's funny because I would actually look before the injury, before Callum Chambers' injury, and I agree with Max, is that I think he was arguably our best player, definitely our best defender before the injury happened. And I would actually hold Callum Chambers in terms of natural ability to a higher standard than Rob Holding. And I think he's being overlooked. He's a forgotten man in many senses. And I think that Mikel Arteta has a very bad habit of doing that, is when somebody gets injured and they're out of sight, out of mind, really, and he sort of casts them into the background too quick and doesn't give them enough chances on the way back from injury. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
It's tough to give people chances, Owen, when you've got 47 fucking defenders and you're trying to rotate them through a team.
But it's not too hard when none of them can fucking defend.
No, I know. Look, I'm a huge Chambers fan, and we've done extensive podcasts over on our channel about Callum Chambers, about how good he was before he got injured. And I'm not surprised that he's come back in at right the team when we're asking our left side to constantly go forward, and we're so heavily leveraged that way with Granit Xhaka playing that left side channel ball. It actually leaves the space open to play a more defensive right back who stays behind the ball. If you remember when Ainsley Maitland-Niles was playing very well last year and he was actually building up a good relationship with Pepe, Ainsley didn't actually go that far beyond. Ainsley liked to sit in the hole. He was a good recovery defender. He liked being expansive and linking up with Pepe. Now, I would argue that Callum Chambers, as a passer of the ball, is actually one of our most technical passers in the team. He's definitely our most technical centre-back passer in the team as well. And to see the way that he pulled into that more central position, and it allowed us to I guess, ratchet up that left side and pull Chambers inside. For me, it made sense, and I wasn't that surprised by it. And I'm never surprised when Chambers comes in and plays well, because I think he's criminally underrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
would you rather have, like, at right back, deputizing at right back, deputizing at center back, squad player, longtime Gooner? Would you rather have somebody that is about a 7 to a 7.5 every single game, or a guy who's going to be vacillating between being a 4 and a 9?
Well,
which is basically David Luiz.
I didn't think Cedric. See, everyone loved Cedric's performance because Pepe played well in the prior game. I thought Cedric had a poor game. I thought his touch was poor. I think some of his technicality is poor. I just thought that he was different to Hector. It was kind of like cheating on your missus, right? It was like, oh, that's different and new, therefore it must be better.
I don't know anything about what that's like.
It's probably not. It's probably.
You want to be careful. You've got an emotionally unstable woman sitting
He
upstairs.
says his wife's upstairs. But yeah, I didn't actually think that Cedric was that mind-blowing. I just thought he buzzed around a lot. So I just think there's some things like the way that Arsenal fans compartmentalize performances. They get bored of someone and then someone new comes in and they immediately think that person's good. And like Owen said, then we disregard people who have been playing well, who have come in and out of the team.
Yeah. It's funny because even though we're talking about him in that right back position, I actually do think that he's one of our better options in the centre back position, that right sided centre back position. I would really like to see him there. I still think that in the summer that right back is somewhere that we should and hopefully will strengthen. But yeah, I think he's being overlooked in terms of that right sided centre back position. But
there's 10 guys that need to be sold this summer. He's not on my list of 10.
No, absolutely not. And his versatility is a big reason behind that too, is because he can play centre back either side. He can play right back. He can play defensive midfield if needs be, although he might not be mobile enough. That's one of the arguments put across. But Mike, I'll come to you with this one because I've got a question here, and I think it's going to be a big debating point, and Andy's the main culprit that I think I'm going to have a bit of a debate with over this one, so I'll save it for him. But
it's going to be Leno.
Our goal.
Okay. Martinez is better. No, I'm just
kidding. Sticking to the positives here, Mike. Okay, something that we see nowadays in modern football is coaches persisting to play out from the back, and I think it was never more evident the positives to that than when we got our goal from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Started from Leno into Partey, just tidy movement up the pitch. What did you make of that goal? And do you think that was a cute finish by Aubameyang or just bad goalkeeping on behalf of Nick Pope?
I mean, I think the logic is you never want to get beat on the near post to a player like Aubameyang, but it was nifty. I think the timing of his shot was such that he could have gone and looked like he was going to go kind of for that Thierry Henry kind of curl it into the far post finish, and instead he went for the cheeky, the direct shot on the near post. I mean, if Pope gets a hand on it and pushes it almost against the bar, and I mean, you probably could argue he could have done better, but I mean, I had no problem with the shot. I didn't think he got lucky at all. I think that's a classic striker's goal, and I was glad to see that he had the confidence to take it that way.
It was a real. I know this is going to sound stupid, but if you play football, you'll know what I mean. It was a real flat finish. A lot of the times those shots sort of scupper and it bobbles along the surface, but it was so flat and slick to the ground. And I think it was just a case of a good poker face from Aubameyang that tricked Pope. That the opposite side of the goal was gaping that much that
you had to be leaning one way or the other. I mean, he just
naturally you're going to go to that open side of the goal, and it was good craftsmanship from Aubameyang to recognise that and go for the obscure finish in that situation that probably 90% of strikers wouldn't have went for. So it's a positive sign. But we'll go on to the big talking point here, which Andy is when playing out from the back doesn't work as well, and. For me, there's two culprits in this here. There's obviously Granit Xhaka, but I think that Bernd Leno was equally or more responsible for that goal going in. And it's something that I've criticised him, and used to know I often say that his distribution worries me at times, that he's lacklustre on the ball and he doesn't commit to a decision early enough. What did you make of that whole mess of a situation as a whole? And if you were to throw one name out as to who is responsible for that, who would you be throwing out?
It's your two favorite players on the team. It's your two favorite players on the team.
You have to blame Leno. You want to say it a third time? I feel like you have to blame Leno because Xhaka doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, right? And Leno should have seen that he was going to be closed down quickly. Leno could have looked up field, saw that, and just booted it out. I mean, that was the simple play. So, but as a central midfielder, you're supposed to know who's around you at all times. So he should have either checked his. Leno, for me, is probably the one to blame.
Well, here's Daniel Robert. Let's. That was very anticlimactic. I thought you were going to fight with me there, and I was looking forward to it a little. So I'm hoping one of these other boys will have a pair of balls to argue.
I honestly believe that in this system, at this level, and as someone who has been a Granit Xhaka detractor, but has spent the last 2 months saying, despite me not liking him, I think he has been pivotal in these last 2 months. That's my caveat. I don't like him. I'm never going to like him, but when his form is good, he's a reasonable player. At this level of football, Xhaka he had time, he had ability to take a touch, he had ability to hoof it out, He actually had an open channel. All he had to do was wrap his right foot around it, which is like a fucking pirate's peg leg. It does not work for him. And if Bernd Leno is a world-class keeper, which I believe Bernd Leno is most of the time, and arguably over the last 2 seasons could have been pre-injury last season, would have been player of the season for us, despite everyone fucking jerking off Emi Martinez. If you can't have the faith that you can put a ball onto an international player's right foot with time to take a touch and that he can't either find someone or get it out, that means that you've got the wrong players that you're passing to, especially when we know that Arteta's preference is to play out from the back and doesn't want Leno hoofing it. If Leno had his time again, would he hoof it? I think he would. But a lot of our goals, a lot of our build-up have been from this building up from the back and pulling people out of position. The problem with Arsenal fans is you cannot have your cake and eat it too. You can't say you want to play expansive, beautiful, one-touch football building from the back and then say, I want the keeper to hoof it every time it's possibly going to go to Granit Xhaka. Who, as well, can I just say for Granit Xhaka, is blowing out of his fucking ass and has played every single minute this season, and I'll absolve him a little bit for that. And I think the poor part from Arteta is picking him again.
So I'm going to share my screen for a second. Hold on.
Arteta out. Or Max. I have to fight.
Didn't Xhaka show? Didn't Xhaka just like make such a show out of showing for him? I mean, he ran from 15 feet away to show for him to pass it to him.
I mean, he was literally almost like Ted Lasso. If any of you have seen that entire episode where he's actually trying to coach, I want the ball. Can I have the ball? I'll take the ball. Give me the ball. I'll like the ball.
Here's my
look at this.
Right.
Look at
go.
This. Leno's got the ball. If you look up, you have Xhaka here, fair enough. But look at the triangle that Burnley have. This player's out of play. Xhaka's about to get closed down. And if Leno looks over here, he's out of play.
It's not fully It's not fully representative of the situation. Are you allowed to play the clip? Yeah, see
the triangle's just closed in.
The movement.
So if you're Leno, fucking boot it.
Exactly. And this is my problem. And I don't want to go on to the whole Emi thing. But what I liked about Emi, one of the main things is that this was something that I had criticised Leno of too much. I don't care if your manager says play out at the back every time. It's up to you as a professional to take measure of the situation and make your own decision. Because he's obviously going to be criticised for this here. There needs to be variety.
Here's where I also fault Leno. Watch. Xhaka gets the ball. Leno's watching this guy close him down. Pass it back. Ask for the ball back and just fucking boot it out.
There needs to be variety. You can't just play out from the back every single time because I
agree with you. I agree with you on that, Owen. But I think if you pause that frame there is ample time and there is ample space to play a first time right-footed pass around the corner.
There's just not ample right foot.
That's my issue. So if I am going to pull Leno up for something, it's maybe knowing the position where he's going to take it on his right foot.
I'm not saying Jack gets off scot-free because even in this frame here, he could have just passed it back to Bernd Leno and Bernd Leno put his foot through it then. So they're both responsible. But I don't like how one person can be criticised and the other one can't when they're both equally responsible for that.
100%.
You know, and it's a term of Granit Xhaka being thrown under the bus again. You know,
here's a question, right? Here's a question. As any professional footballer should know, you never pass the ball into someone when they're about to become under pressure. Leno should have seen that was an awful pass to begin with. There's a lot of people to blame here, but solely like Leno is looking downfield and sees what's happening in front of them. He should have thought, this is way too fucking close. Just boot it forward. We can reestablish ourselves. Also, if you give that ball to Xhaka, 99 out of 100 times he's completing that pass. Or if it does go off the Burnley player, it's going out for a goal kick. Like that was just perfection of like a deflection going into the goal. But for me, it's Leno 100%.
But there's something Daniel Robert puts up there. It says, but Xhaka should take it in one touch at the Luis. And here's my other criticism, and I don't care what level you're playing at. As a footballer, you're on the pitch. You know, like if I'm Bernd Leno, I'm looking and I'm saying, well, I know that he's a fucking moron that makes mistakes. He constantly does. You know, so like it sounds stupid to say, but you have to take into consideration who it is that's showing for the ball. Like Matteo Guendouzi used to do it all the time and make an arse out of himself and either Leno or Emery Martinez, whoever it was, stop passing the ball to him in that situation. So for me, the keeper has to bear some form of responsibility of it. But another controversial one we'll jump on to, Tanner, is the penalty claim, handball up in the box where Nicola Pepe chips the ball up, it hits Peters on the hand, blatant VAR check. What did you make of that whole situation? Surely now with all these with the accumulation of all these errors from VAR, the club have to be pulling this up at the end of the season for some form of inquiry as to why there's so many decisions going against us.
I'm fairly certain I said it on my post-game show on Saturday. Every owner of every club at this point need to band together to say, okay, we're going to fund a completely external, independent investigation into the officiating, because this is now this is a blatant and obvious error that VAR didn't overturn. Wait, yeah. It was called hand. No, it was not called handball on the field. I apologize.
No, it wasn't. This one.
That is a blatant and obvious error that VAR upheld. At some point, somebody has to start asking questions, and you have to just, what, if you're gonna get fined for it, then take the fine. Take the fine. And you know what you do then? Then you embarrass the referees and the FA and the Premier League and say, fine, you want to fine us? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that fine. We'll pay it. But, oh, by the way, we're also going to double that fine. We're going to donate it to a charity. So keep doing this, because we'll just donate money to charity.
You should donate it to a charity that supports the inclusion of people of color in the FA at referee levels. That's what they should do.
You should donate.
Because then you're taking the idea and you're pointing out their weaknesses on top of that.
I would have donated it to like a cause for blind people.
There you go. There you go. You know what? You know what, Andy? I'll take it one step further. How about to a service dog foundation?
Right.
Service dogs.
I mean, at this point, let's get service dogs out on the pitch to run around with these guys, because they're going to make better calls than.
Look, I mean, at this day and age, in any other sport, you have film geeks that are employed by the club that all they do is they compile every minute of every game from every team in every week, and they're able to basically splice out, okay, here's all of the 50-50 calls on handballs. Here's what was called as a penalty. Here's what wasn't called as a penalty. Here's what was reviewed by VAR. Here's what people went to the screen to look at. Here's what took 5 seconds to review. Here's what took a 3-minute delay. And, and just, I mean, do the study. Maybe it'll turn out that we haven't gotten the short end of the stick.
But it goes even higher than that there, Mike, as well, because something I was actually messaging my brother, who's an absolute diehard Liverpool fan, and he couldn't believe the decision for one. But what he said to me was, he said he couldn't believe that Steve McManaman was going on like such an arsehole on commentary, towing the party line, backing up the officials, and saying that they were right in their decision. And Max, do you think that there is a tendency from the media and officials and high level journalists that they all huddle together and have this sort of little protective group around these officials, that there's no accountability? And not only that, how would you counter the fact that there is no accountability? What kind of system would you implement?
So we've just been through this in my second sport, which is rugby league over here, which is NRL. We've just been through this mass overhaul of VAR. We did what Mike said, which was to go and look and bring in an independent body who looked at every single decision. They came out and said up until last year, and VAR were 98.6% accurate throughout the year when you take every single decision that's going on for every minute. So let's say there's 3,000 decisions a game to be made. It was in the high 98th percentile of correct. And when put the question, would you accept a game that had 1% of variance? The general answer was yes, you would accept a game of 1% of variance. For things like handball, and I got shot down on my own podcast for this last week. Weirdly, I brought it up before this actually happened. I think that when you've got so many different elements and so many different areas with which both VAR and a referee can apply their own opinion to the rules, it becomes very, very difficult. I'm very big on black and white. I've said for many, many years, if the ball touches your hand, it's handball. I don't care whether it's in a natural position.
It's unfortunate.
Because you're walking towards someone. All we would see is over the course of the season, it would even itself out, which is what I miss about football. And I've always felt this about offside and very tight offside. Like, you'll get as many as you don't, right? Instead of just going and getting everything. So I'm very much like, bring in black and white opinions. My other way of fixing the whole system is something that we brought in again. Sorry to go back to rugby league. No one knows what rugby league is except for me whenever I bring stuff up. But now put what we call the bunker, which is VAR, they put them on a shot clock. And they've said you've got 45 seconds to come up with a decision. If you can't rule this out or overrule it within 45 seconds, and it stops the lines and the back and the forth and the camera and the one frame, and it defers to the fact that what the referee said live, if VAR can't come up with a decision within a set period of time, it just goes back to the original decision, which before VAR is what it would have been anyway. So, like, for me, that's the way you fix it. You reduce the amount of time they can look at it. You look at some of the rules. You look at things like handball, and you say, if the and it's handball. Simple as that. You know, someone brought up a great thing about offside. You just put a variance on the line. So essentially the line, you double the thickness of the line. It's a variance on the line, and it gives you the ability to say, well, it's so close. Because don't forget, without slow motion cameras, I think each frame is 0.3 of a second per frame. On a slow motion camera, it's 0.1 of a second. So 0.3 of a second is literally within a frame is the difference between something touching or something not touching.
So I guess what they're doing they're doing that in like Finland or Norway or one of the Scandinavian countries. Their league is going to that. So it's like a 5% variance, right?
Well,
and
we want to see goals, Andy. The Premier League was about
no, that's
goals.
what I'm saying. They're
about
like
ruling out goals.
Yeah, no. But I think that what their plan is they're giving that variance and just saying this is it, right? Like the technology isn't there yet. So if it falls in this area, then we're going ahead with it. And
so what you would do,
I'm hopeful that's more of a clarification to say there aren't going to be questions like, you know, one match it happens, one match it doesn't. They're just going to say if it falls in this, then it's a goal, it's an offside, whatever it is. So hopefully that will diminish the errors that we keep seeing.
Well, and they've got to do that.
We get a more entertaining brand of football with more goals, less stoppages, a faster game. We don't have to sit there and watch to see if someone's fucking foreskin was offside by half of, you know.
Well, and they're drawing lines. They're drawing vertical lines from to the floor, and they're doing like, you know, geometry. But what they're forgetting about is the fact that there's still some human element to deciding when to take that picture, because a ball coming off of somebody's foot, which is what triggers whether, you know, the point at which somebody's offside or not, that is not happening in 0.1 of a second. You know, you can't tell whether the ball's still touching his foot if it's off his foot. So the moment that they choose to take that snapshot that they're being so exacting on is subject to human error. So
that's why I said, Mike, put them on a shot clock, give them 45 seconds. If you can't when I say it in 45 seconds, you go with the on-field decision, which is what it was before VAR anyway.
But when I say accountability, I agree that there needs to be changes to the rules. But when I say accountability, I mean the fact that if you're a manager and you continue to make mistakes and you lose games, you get sacked. If you're a striker and you continue to miss goals, you're dropped. There's no accountability in the league in terms of punishments for consecutive poor performances. And for me as well, another thing that worries me is there's 19. I think the last time I checked, there was 19 registered Premier League referees, and out of all of them, none of them apparently are very, very, very few of them are registered as supporting Premier League football clubs. They're all registered as supporting, you know, some shitebox local team because it's a conflict of interest, and then they can't referee those games.
Mike Dean goes to Tranmere games just so he can have plausible deniability to win.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would like to see something come in on like a referee's boss, which we have in Australia in multiple sports, who actually scrutinizes the decisions online and then goes back to the media afterwards and decides whether or not those decisions were correct or not. And again, sorry to bring it back to NRL, but we've been doing this. We've had VAR in for 20 years in NRL, so we've honed it up. If you are making consistent decisions, we have a fine-based systems for referees. They get hit in their pocket. So if the referee's boss keeps coming out, keeps saying it's a poor decision, we're against that, it's a poor decision, they get fined and ultimately have to get stood down. But isn't this an argument to say that the quality of the referees and also obviously what we have at grassroots level or what we have doing League One and lower divisions isn't as good, that we can't stand these guys down and bring someone else in? Do we have so little faith in the referees coming through?
They should open, in my opinion, the way it should be formatted is that so that there's more variant in terms of the officials assigned to your game. I think that they should do Championship and Premier League referees, and then League One and League Two, and they're both open over 2 divisions. So there's more variant because
that's perfect. I like that.
How many times do you say, "Oh, fucking Mike Dean destroyed that game," and then 3 weeks later he's back on the same fucking game again?
Or is the VAR referee for the game, and where there shouldn't necessarily be active referees as VAR. There should be like in hockey and the Toronto folks.
In my opinion, with VAR, I think it should be manned by an ex-referee and 2 ex-players. It should be a 3-person panel.
3-person. Very much like boxing, UFC, you have 3-person panel. It will extend the amount of time. But again, if you shot clock them like Mac was saying, then you're saying like, hey, you have 45 seconds to a minute, or this call stands as called. But have a petition where you have a panel that says, no, this is what I'm seeing, and have a conversation. And in matches where Champions League final or semifinal, where it actually matters, shot clock goes out the window. We want the right result. It may ruin the game for a little bit, but those are few and far between.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of pounds are at stake.
At the end of the day, the fact that this wasn't called is absolute bullshit. And whoever was in that box, whoever's officiating referee, they should be fired. They should be banned. They should be given a 10-match ban, because that was absolute. Like, how you can't see that is bullshit.
But Andy, why don't we get some kind of a post report from the VAR explaining
that's it.
Metrics and the reasons with which he chose? So if why don't we have a thing afterwards from him?
Doesn't the A-League do that, Max?
Yeah,
the A-League
have
mic'd up?
Yeah, they've got mic'd up refs. You can hear what the VAR is saying. I don't watch A-League; it's fucking terrible. But
they do that part right though.
But they mic their people up. You can hear it. You can hear the conversation. I mean, let's not even get started in how bad the in-game experience is now. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but let's look at the Aubameyang goal against Benfica. That is the least I have ever celebrated a last-minute goal in Arsenal's history. It destroyed it for me. I brought up this on our podcast the other week. Does anyone remember the Danny Welbeck goal? In recent memory, the most I went ballistic about a goal was Danny Welbeck against Leicester when I thought we'd won the league. I ran through my house, jumped on top of my wife, opened up every window, slept on the couch, 4 a.m, right? That guy, that doesn't fucking exist anymore. Now I'm sitting there and I very quietly watched it. I go, oh, Aubameyang scored. And then I go, I'll just wait for VAR.
Wait for the VAR check. Right.
Wait for the VAR check. So I'm very reticent to bring 3 people into an area, which brings 3 people's opinions. So now we've got 4 people's opinions, include the linesman. We've now got 5 people's opinions for a game that is not in any way black and white. In any way black and white. We should have the depth of referees. I mean, I don't even like having VAR there. I would rather remove VAR and only have the referee going to the screen to make the decision for himself and giving him an amount of time to do it. Because all he should be doing is confirming what he already saw, not putting an objective opinion onto another person's objective opinion to have multiple people apply their fucking objective opinion and ruin football forever.
I can't imagine that referee, was it Kevin Friend?
Kevin Friend was the VAR official. It was Andre Mariner was the on-field official.
Mariner, as much as he clearly mixes things up and has issues in his life when it comes to seeing things right on the pitch, if he immediately went over to a screen and looked at that, I mean, he'd see a guy who gained an advantage, whether intentionally or unintentionally, by having his arms out to a ball that actually went off his arm.
But there was actual movement from his arm towards the ball. That's the infuriating thing too. He didn't stay still, and his arm not his body, but his arm moved towards the ball. It was anyway.
That's the rule. Away from the body, extended away from the body is a rule.
Was it Tom said that he was standing like fucking Christ the Redeemer?
I mean, what's the point? Like I think we said this, Tanner, after the game. What's the point of the people that go and put their arms behind their back? You can't see that I'm doing that because I'm so fat. Right. But like, they're not. And I mean, what's the point in doing that? Why should anybody do that anymore if it doesn't really?
But even like those rules at grassroots levels don't, like when we are playing Sunday League football, you're told unless your arms are in contact with your body or you're protecting your face, it's a handball. That's the rule. It's that simple, so straightforward. Your arm has to be in contact with your body or protecting your face. Otherwise, penalty, handball, whatever. But lads, I think we're getting real hung up on this VAR.
And can I make 3 points real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So real quick to Max and the foreskin being offside thing. That would have been funny because not one of us laughed. It would have been funny if it weren't fucking true. Number one. Number two, Mike and Andy can attest to this. The NHL War Room in Toronto, Mike, I think you actually said something about it. But I don't know how many sets of eyes there are there watching every game, but they're completely independent of the on-ice officials in the NHL. Completely independent, but they're also not the ones that make decisions. They will stop play. A horn will go off in the arena. They'll stop play. Either the officials or the linesmen will skate over, and they will watch on a monitor as they're in communication with Toronto. And then the on-ice officials actually are the ones that make the final call. How often have we seen the on-field official in a situation like this doesn't even go look at the screen? Andre Mariner never even bothered to go look at the screen.
There's no rhyme or reason as to why a person does versus doesn't. I don't understand what the purpose of it is.
If VAR is going to interrupt a game, the on-field official should immediately go to the screen and be in contact with the VAR official to come to the proper conclusion.
It would get him away from all those assholes chasing him around, asking him what's going on.
Yeah,
anyway. Like,
that too. Like, get off the field and make a rule that, hey, you can't, as a player, you can't cross the touch line when an official is going to the screen. Like, you can't follow him over there, or you know what, you're down to 10 minutes, an automatic red card if you do. Not that I think players would do that. But I had a third point. I don't remember what it was, but that's all I have to say about it.
I'm very edgy about the fact that, and I don't want to come across as offensive when I say this here, but I don't want it too Americanized. That's and I feel I align much more with Max, whereas I would prefer to strip it all back rather than over add stuff to it. Because
I would absolutely be in favor. Here's the thing. It is, if you go one direction and let's say, as you said, Owen, sort of Americanize it, but that's still an easy fix. If you scale it back, it's an easy fix. This is such an easy thing to fix, and they don't want to fix it. And that has to be a question, that if there's ever to be an investigation into this, why do you not want to fix this problem? Who is gaining from this? And we're at a point now, and I never in my life thought that I would actually say this about a sport, but we're legitimately questioning whether referees are gaining somehow from this. I mean, I just never thought. I mean, we had a scandal in the NBA here some years ago where a referee was betting on point spreads and over-unders in NBA games. I mean, that's like, and he went to jail for it, for crying out loud. Not only did he lose his job, he went to jail over this. But this is a serious thing that we're not, and we're serious. This isn't that call went against us. The fix is in. They don't want us to win over something dumb. No, like this is serious now, and it's happening enough with not just Arsenal, but other teams,
just Arsenal,
where the referees, you have to ask the question: are they standing to gain somehow, most likely financially, from making these calls?
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is as well, and again, I don't want to rattle on too much about it because we want to get to some of the boys' questions in the chat, but I think part of the problem is that it often weighs out favourable to some of the most popular teams, i.e. your Manchester United, Liverpool's, Man City's, Chelsea, that often weighs out favourable for them. And I think that's often why you don't see such sort of like a mass stand against the officials or a huge protest against them come the end of each season. But definitely, I think it's never been more in the spotlight than now. And there's obviously
Arsene Wenger to the rescue.
Some sort of protest in it. But Andy, I'll come to you about this here one. So we're going to move away from the Burnley game a bit and just start to talk about sort of Arsenal overall, because I've seen a lot of people sort of either getting on the fence or changing their opinion either way and stuff a lot lately. So there's a question, and I was watching in the Burnley match, and I sort of tracked my mind back to the beginning of Mikel Arteta's tenure. Are we actually improving under Mikel Arteta? Is there actual improvements?
I think we talked a little bit about this on Friday, right? So, like, yeah, there's improvements because at least when we lose, we can see, or when we draw, right? We can see moments in the match where we say, yeah, we could have put 2 or 3 away. The thing with our fan base, Owen, is, we win 3 in a row. We're the next fucking Man City of the world, right? Our fan base are all of a sudden like everything's okay. I'm under the true, like, I think we're improving. I think if you look at the players in our team, they're improved. But I'm not going to judge Mikel Arteta until he gets enough transfer windows to allow himself to build a team. And unfortunately, with COVID, he hasn't had that opportunity, and we've been handcuffed by a lot of large wages, which have finally been cleared, but we're still catching up. So I think we're improving. Leaps and bounds, no, but we're improving, right?
Yeah, well, is anybody on the opposite side?
It depends on how you, again, I've been listening to, this has been the hot topic on all of the Monday podcasts and the Sunday podcasts.
And just a note that I don't want to sound like I'm making people repeat themselves, but it's I think we briefly covered it, but we didn't actually dive too much in depth as to our personal opinions on where we sort of are. So sorry, I just wanted to mention that before.
Yeah, no, well, my personal opinion, I think, on this has been well stated. I tend to believe and feel similar to how Andy does. The table never lies is the common thing. This is the most I've ever seen a table lie before, to be honest. Again, it was pointed out in other podcasts that, yes, we're 10th or joint. Maybe it's even joint 11th now with some of the games that were played the last couple of days. But it's in a table where the difference between 11th and 4th, 11th and 2nd even, is so much less than it was in previous years, to where you could have been in 8th place but been so much further off of being top 2 or top 3. You can frame it however you want. I see a situation where there is so much going against us playing with togetherness, with everyone's head in the same direction. The beginning of this season, for whatever reason, because we put it together, over the summer for a pretty successful FA Cup run, but for some reason, this from the start this fall, we just didn't have a mentality of this team that wanted to play for Arteta and play well. And I think that some of the people who are probably most to blame for that have been edged out. There are more to come in the summer. And if not for that, I'd be looking at the place in the table more than I would breaking down each individual game. Every single one of these games that you see, you can point to a situation where it's either an individual error, a frustrating situation with a referee or VAR decision. And while I'm not blaming those for us losing those games, because there's we should be winning those games easier than we had, I do see it as an improvement over what was happening earlier this year, where we just had nothing to put our head on.
Can I jump in there, because that's actually funny, a topic I was going to take up, and I think it's a good time to do so. And Out and Out Gooners podcast puts in Arteta will be judged next season. This isn't the time basically for him to be called out. But you said there about that a lot of these games have come down to individual errors or decisions going against us. Okay, but this is where I'll be honest, I'll be very open. I'm very middle ground, back and forth sway of my opinion of him as a manager. And it almost took a radical change against Burnley, because I think, and people might get upset when I say this here, or think that it's stupid, but I think that Mikel Arteta was as much responsible for us dropping points against Burnley as Granit Xhaka, as Bird Leno, and as the VAR officials. Because what I seen from him in his substitutions were tactically ludicrous. I have absolutely no idea how a man has been in football that long what he was thinking, taking off our only creative outlet in Martin Odegaard and putting Alexander Lacazette in a number 10 position against a big physical side like Burnley. You know, like that's extremely basic stuff. Remove Willian, who was non-existent in the game. Remove Bukayo Saka, who didn't have his best game in an Arsenal shirt. Put Aubameyang out in the left. Put Alexander Lacazette up top for some physicality, and keep your source of supply on the pitch. And he was playing quite well, I thought. So Danny, I think I'm overreacting in terms of how big I thought that decision was to remove that. To me, it just seemed absolutely nonsensical.
And I've been sort of barking up this same tree as you for weeks now. So I guess my argument is there seems to be, much like global politics right now, you're either one side or the other, and the truth probably exists somewhere in the middle, is the line that I keep. Arteta, the best coach in the world? Is he the worst coach in the world? I think it's definitely something that exists within the middle. My issues with Arteta have been around his in-game management rather than his pre-team selection management. When he brings on players, the players he puts them into, when he brings on players, when he's looking for specific effects in a game, I find some of his substitutions very Wengerian, as if they've been predetermined, regardless of game state. This is what I'm going to do. This guy needs a run. This has to happen. Is that a mark of a great manager? I don't think that is a mark of a great manager. Do I think his man management is particularly good? Bringing Lacazette in, getting him scoring goals, dropping him until he's dead, dropping him out. Pepe comes in, starts to run, backtracks, gets dropped out of the team. All these things are man management elements for me. But I will say this. In any organization in the world that is being run with an outlook towards fiscal effectiveness, in the sense where you are bringing someone into a senior management position and you're doing that based on the fact that it is a cheaper option, or they're going to command less, especially in the transfer table of you. People spoke about bringing in Allegri, and the rumor was that Allegri had basically said it was a £300 million overhaul over 2 years. Arteta didn't command that. You bought Arteta in, this is what you've got, this is how much you're going to have, we've got £50 million for you, you can have our, or you can have party, use the kids. So anytime you are going down this path, there's going to be a period of time of, I guess, in-job learning that you're not paying by going getting someone who has learnt those elements elsewhere before. So I guess in trying to apply logic to this rather than trying to apply emotion or, I guess, fandom, which most people do, I look at a system that was already very, very broken, absolutely flooded with 7 out of 10 players on 10 out of 10 money, some large-scale personalities who had to be removed from the club and have been removed from the club. I think the reason why we've been played in such a horrifically overly structured manner is because the assets that we have didn't necessarily allow us to play forward-thinking football. And if you want to see what it looks like, go look at Man City, because that's the football that he wants to be playing, but he doesn't have the technicality of the pieces to be pulling them in and out. So is Arteta a good coach? I think he is a good coach. Is Arteta an experienced, mature manager yet? No, but that's what we hired. So it's going to take an expansive time for us to find out which side of this equation is more true than the other.
And Andy, you know firsthand, the Kroenke sports entertainment empire does not believe in hiring established coaches who may just do a quick job and then you have to rotate and find another one a couple years later. And I'll say that's exactly how I see Carlo Ancelotti. I don't see Carlo Ancelotti as successful as it may end up being. Carlo Ancelotti won't be at Everton in 5 years.
No. Well, and the other thing too is
they want to find the next Wenger. They don't want to find the next Carlo Ancelotti.
And you know, to Max's point, right? Like, and people have been saying in the chat group, like, you know, when we look at Arteta versus Unai Emery, right? The reason Unai Emery didn't get as much time as Mikel Arteta is because he lost the dressing room. That was very evident and very clear. The players did not buy into a goddamn thing he was doing. On the other hand, a lot of these players, 98% of them, have played under both managers. The results are eerily similar. They're buying into what Mikel Arteta is doing. And so there is a huge difference there. But
the ones who matter are.
And I agree with Max. Like, he wants a system to play without the players that he's used to. But if we look at the players that he's brought in, right, bar Willian, they're players that walk into the Arsenal 11 when they're fit and they're healthy, and they are players that change outcomes of matches. So if that's the type of person who's going to be leading the transfers the next couple of years, I'm okay with that. But I'm sorry, for me, the blame is on the players, because this is the majority of the same players that failed for Freddie, failed for Unai, and now are failing for Mikel. And we need to allow him time to remove those players. And he's going to do that. Max Allegri and...
Did I do this with you a while back, right? And this isn't me being a dickhead. I'm just saying, just to sort of counter that argument. So you've got Bird Leno in goal, who Mikel Arteta obviously thinks a lot of. He kept him here over Emi Martinez. He brought in a right back in Cedric. He's got a captain there in Hector Bellerin that he seemingly thinks a lot of. He's got two central defenders. He gave Rob Holding a new contract. He gave David Luiz an extension of his deal. He's got Gabriel and Pablo Mari, who are both his signings. He's got Kieran Tierney, who he thinks a lot of. He's got Granit Xhaka, who he blocked a move to Hertha Berlin. He's taken in Thomas Partey and Ceballos, his loan partners. He's got Martin Odegaard now in attacking midfield. He's got Willian and Aubameyang, who he took in Willian and he extended Aubameyang's contract. And he's got Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka, two players that have been offered new contracts. So he does have players that he wants at this club.
Yeah, which is fine. But like, we also have to look at the state of where we are as a club. Some of those players have been given contracts because we cannot go into the market to replace. So we look at like David Luiz, the extension, Granit Xhaka, the extension, Pablo Mari at the time with the small fee, right? He knew the player. Like, we don't have the capabilities to just drop in the market and say we're going to drop 45 million for this player and for that player. So we got to look at what's in front of us and say, okay, David Luiz can do the job 8 out of 10 times, and he essentially was little money and he doesn't require a massive contract. Plus, you look at the backside of it and you say, okay, he's good for the locker room. So yeah, there are players, but and are those players that he really wants at the club, or are those players that the board have said to him, well, you don't have the money to replace, so we're going to extend contracts? Who do you want and who don't you want?
No, that's nail on the head, Andy. That's absolute nail on the head. I couldn't have put it better myself. You cannot jettison 10 players and bring 10 players in over a season. It's a recipe for complete disaster.
I understand that, and that's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm getting at is that somebody put in the chat earlier about David Moyes with West Ham. Are they a better squad than us? You know, is Carlo Ancelotti's Everton a better squad than us on paper? Maybe they're in and around the same amount, but they're not 10th. You know, regardless of how bad we are and how much sort of work this squad needs, we're massively underperforming regardless.
If you look at West Ham, right? Mike had said the table lies. This is the biggest offseason that we were ever going to see. West Ham will never replicate this. Yeah, they're playing well, right? They have a huge run of matches in the next 5 fixtures, and we'll see what happens then and there, right? But also, they don't have fans in the stadium, and I live in a house or a family amongst lots of West Ham fans, and they all say the same thing. If the fans were in the stadium, they'd be moaning and groaning at every single little misplaced pass. Ultimately, like, this season is a wash.
By that, right? we should be doing better this season without fans as well, if that's the metric. But I know what you're saying. But
let me jump in here if I can, real quick. I don't know if Andy, are you done with your thought there? I don't want to step.
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, I am. I hate that argument of like David Moyes is doing better than Mikel. Fuck, that's just fucking stupid. Because it's a silly season. If David Moyes does it at West Ham like he did at Everton for 4 or 5 seasons in a row, then let's have that conversation. But we're talking less than 38 games. Like, this is bullshit.
A year ago, people were saying that about Chris Wilder.
Exactly.
We're also talking about expectations.
Listen, can I just say one more thing on the West Ham thing? My father, my brother-in-law, my best friend, all diehard Hammers. None of them want Europe next season. None of them want Europe because they see that as the dagger in West Ham's back. They're like, we do not want to play Europa League. Like, we're happy with where we're at. but we don't want to replicate because we don't have this. We don't have the squad. We're going to fail if we go into Europe.
Look at what happened them that far up the table. They nearly got relegated the next season.
What the hell just happened?
It's just you, Max. Take it away.
I've never seen that happen before.
I misclicked.
What was that dance that you just
when you buy yourself on the screen in front of an audience,
you got a vamp. You got a vamp.
See, just before Tanner goes off on one here, lads in the chat, if you have any questions, start to stick them in, and we'll move on to them after this one.
Speaking of which, I do want to give a quick shout out. Sorry, Tanner, but everyone in the chat, Daniel Robert in the chat, the Arsenal Luchadors in the chat. I no idea who that is. Jim in the chat, Divyan, 28 Guy Happy. 28 Guy Happy. I haven't seen that name in here before. Welcome to the pod. Gary, DWTT's in here. Danny, the GFP's in here. Let's see who else. We got Stan the Man is in here. Ion Métis, Out and Out Gooners podcast, who I spent some time with on our post-game show with an open mic situation, which we tend to do when I've had a few drinks before the game. Mark Mertz, good to see you back as always. So yeah, great chat, Tanner. Sorry to step in front of you, and I think we're also going to be dropping one. We're not dropping all four of us and leaving Max here by himself.
I gotta bounce. But Max, best of luck with everything, mate. Hope everything goes smoothly and everything go good. BG, great to meet you. Owen, always a pleasure. Mike, God damn it.
I was just going to make a comment on Arteta real quick, and I've said this for a while now. The thing with Mikel Arteta to me is he doesn't trust himself, and this may sound strange to say, but he doesn't trust. He's much better with younger players than he is with the experienced, seasoned, old dogs, veterans, whatever you want to call them. And he also just has this notion in his head that, well, I have to play. I'm going to play the youngsters because they're buying in and they get the system, but I need balance in the squad from an age standpoint. So I'm going to play some of the older, more experienced players so that they can pull these young kids along. And I'll be honest, I don't think that's the case. I don't think he needs to do that. Now, that being said, who replaces some of these older players in the lineup? And that's kind of where where questions need to be asked of the squad. But Arteta just needs to trust himself more. And trust that these young players that are going to buy into the system that are talented. Because, look, Bukayo Saka didn't get a contract extension because we can't afford to go out and buy somebody to replace him. Bukayo Saka got a contract extension because he earned it. He earned it.
He might be due another one pretty soon.
I was just going to say, Mike, end of the season, he can expect to triple.
But that's still going to be cheaper than bringing in a £50 million winger.
Now, Gabriel Martinelli, I think last year earned his extension. Unfortunately, I think he's got pictures of Arteta's wife on his phone or something. He can't get a sniff. I'm going to get a shirt before he does. And nobody wants to see me in an Arsenal shirt, by the way. At least not the kind that they wear on the field anyway.
I'm getting you Puma only just because
those shirts will come with the lumps built in for me. But no, Arteta, look, he's a good coach. The man management thing will come with time because one of the biggest issues that we have with him is, well, wait a minute, this player A just scored 3 goals in 4 games and now he doesn't play for a month. What happened? That's probably one of our biggest questions.
But Tanner, I think he reveres training. I think he reveres training more than what he reveres on pitch performances. And we can't see what Martinelli's doing behind the scenes.
Right.
But Martinelli might not. There was a great comment, Tanner, just quick. There was a great comment from Arteta that I read the other day. And when he was asked about Martinelli, he said he's a huge talent. He's going to be big for us in the future. I think the quote was, we need to find the way for him to play in the relationships, typically coded Arteta message. We need to find a way for him to build the relationships to be effective in games. I read that as, you're really good, but you do not do what I tell you to. You don't hit the area I tell you to when I tell you to get there. And so he burns him. I think we had that with Pepe as well. So he burns him. If anything, if I've got any criticism of Arteta, and not to mention everyone talks about this wonderful thing Arteta did where he brought these kids in. He fucking fell on that and was very lucky to do it because he was forced
for the most
into
part.
it.
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, for the most part he did, but he could have gone right back to the same old thing after.
And even then he changed the thing that was working, Tanner. Even then he pulled ESR out and burned him on the fucking left until he got another injury. and played a high touch, low pace player through the middle when we'd been getting our most success by having a guy who pushed and released and linked up with Saka. So we go back to an Ozil style player. Like a lot of this stuff makes no fucking sense to me.
Again, he doesn't trust himself. He's toying and tinkering with everything, trying to find not even just the perfect game, but the perfect goal. He's trying to find that perfect, just walk the ball into the net goal, and it's just not working. Everything, honest to God, football, in my opinion, and I'm American. I've actually, full disclosure for those who've never seen me, I've never played this sport in my life. I've never actually
even I can say that I've played this.
I was a hockey player. I was an ice hockey player when I was a kid. That was it. That was my sport. That's what I was good at. I was good at ice hockey. But I'll say this: if I were a coach, I want structure and defense. I want chaos offensively. And when I say chaos, I don't want people running around like headless chickens, but I want creativity. I want expression. That's offense. And when there's too much structure in offense, now the brain is getting clouded with, well, wait a minute, did I do that right? Did I just make the right run? I have the ball, but I don't know if I'm supposed to shoot or pass here. What do? I think I'm about to shit myself. Timeout. And
that's really, really funny because, like, obviously with Mikel Arteta is a sort of student of Pep Guardiola, and I remember Thierry Henry, when talking about Pep Guardiola's coaching, says that the pitch was almost broke down in the quarters, and the first 3 quarters were structure. And the final quarter was expressive freedom. When you got there, you could do what you want and operate off instinct. And I'm not sure whether Pep Guardiola's philosophy has changed, because it doesn't seem that way to me with him at the minute, and it doesn't seem that way with me with Mikel Arteta. A couple of things I'll pick apart there. I would actually agree with Tom slightly there, Max, and say that I don't think he was. I think he landed lucky on the group of players that he inherited in terms of the youngsters with Martinelli and Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. That he didn't bring any of them in. But I think, like Tom said, he had the option to play alternatives rather than taking Emile Smith-Rowe in, who was just recovering from an injury. But one of my biggest concerns is I think that it often feels like he almost tries to trick his way into reverting back to old ways, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, Willian had one good game against Leicester and he's instantly back in the starting 11 when Nicola Pepe has been performing very well out on that left-hand side. I was disappointed with that. The Gabriel Martinelli thing is extremely strange to me as well. People often drag up the example of Phil Foden, but Phil Foden is a Manchester City boy through and through. He's come through that club. He'll have a lot more patience.
Is it possible though that Martinelli? There's been a discussion. This is what I'm pegging my hopes on this, because Martinelli is one of the most exciting players to me. When I've seen him in the team sheet, or when I've seen him coming on in games, up until his recent spell of never getting into them, it is the one sub that I'm like, oh, this is what I'm excited to see what he can do. And so I'm grasping at straws here. But is it possible that he's been told, you're going to have a hard time breaking into our squad and getting on the pitch for the rest of this season, because I'm trying to get some consistency here. I don't fully trust that I can play you for 90 minutes. I don't want to just have to keep managing your minutes because of the injury. Is it possible that he's been told, show me that you're a professional, keep practicing, keep training like a professional, and be ready at any moment? And we're going to be getting rid of some people next season. We're probably going to get rid of Lacazette. We're probably going to get rid of Reece Nelson, who wasn't ahead of him in the pecking order anyway. We're going to get rid of Nketiah. Just next season, you will be counted on, and just hang in there, buddy. You're 19, and we're ready to have you be. I hope that's the conversation that's been had, rather than just no explanation for why he is in 18-man squads and can't get in with 5 subs being made in Europa League.
I think that Max hit it in the head, and Max will make this quick because I know you got to run, buddy. But I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think when you look at Gabriel Martinelli, he's a player who hasn't come through the same academies that the likes of Bukayo Saka has. He doesn't have the same tactical coaching pedigree, if you would, that a lot of these other players. He's still very raw, and I think that something we've seen in the Man United game was Mikel Arteta was constantly screaming at him to get back in position. I just don't think he has that knowledge or discipline that is required to play under Mikel Arteta. But if you want to give Max a big thanks, because
Max, thank you for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
Hope everything goes okay.
Good luck with everything, Max.
Good luck, bro.
Hopefully in a short amount of time I have a baby and not 2 black eyes and a broken fucking hand. Because I'm assuming that's what Victoria's going to do to me.
Well, tell her thanks for us, and it's great to finally have you on, Max.
I hope you guys figure out who the dad is too.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
which of the Arsebros? It's definitely
could be any of them, as long as Uncle Manny hasn't been down here, because I'll know straight away if it's Manny. A few of the others I might struggle with, but Manny, if it comes out with a do-rag and a bit of a tan, I know it was Manny.
Okay, royal family. Let's just get out of here.
Guys, lovely to meet you all. See you again soon. Bye.
Cheers. Just a few more minutes. It's great to have Max on finally. It's been a long time coming. In the chat, Tony Turner. Thanks for coming, Tony. I know that you know Tanner well. You know the same old Arsenal guys well. Do me a favor and put your link into the chat. I know that you're raising some funds for a very, very good cause, and we're happy to promote it in our little small way. So please, if you can, put it in the chat, and I'll be happy to put it up on the screen. Don Giovanni's in the house. Tom Canton is in the house in 2 different forms. He's pulling a Mike and Gerbil situation,
proving that one can in fact be in 2 places at the same time. Or
absolutely.
Never mind. That didn't make any sense.
No, it's that he could be 2 people in one place.
In one place at the same. There you go.
Out Now Gooners podcast. That's the question, because I think you can almost be too important to the team just in case that you don't want them burning them. Because the U23 games are always the day before. When you play U23s, you're just not available for selection for the first team. And he is probably in that tweener zone. But if what I'm saying and what I'm hoping is correct, that he's basically said, you're very unlikely to get into this 18, but you have big plans for you in the future, then he probably should be playing games in the 23s just to at least get his fitness up. So I have no counter argument to that. And again, what I'm saying about the reason he's not playing more is my drastic hope of what's happening, because if it's the opposite, I'd be really, really disappointed. And I try to look on the bright side. So
it's not the first time that I've heard the idea that he's just not doing what Arteta wants him to do, which is a bit of a double-edged sword to me, because you want to listen to the coach. You know, Arteta's the boss. You want to listen to him. You want to do what you're told. But at the same time, there's a lot of talent there. And do you really want to reel that talent back in, or do you want to let him be more excited? He's an attacking player. He's not a defender who's constantly running.
You could coach that out of him.
Yeah, I mean, you could really coach it out of him. And I mean, he is somebody put a question in the comments here, and it was basically, if one had to go, is it? Yeah. So if it comes down, Jim. So if it comes down to one had to go, is it Arteta or Martinelli? Which one? I'll be honest with you. I'd say Arteta. If one of them had to go, I'd say Arteta. I mean it. Martinelli right now, we're all of the mind that Gabriel Martinelli could be one of the biggest talents that we've ever had at this club. Now, that's saying a lot, putting a lot of pressure on a 19-year-old kid that has barely had a go for us. But the talent is there, and it's undeniable. And just the fact that he can't even with 5 subs get into a Europa League game, like, come on. I mean, especially when you kind of need that guy that's just going to run at defenders the way that he does. And seriously, he creates problems. And you want to create a problem in attack, and he does that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't mean to just kind of bogart.
No.
So what if one of those clubs that missed out on him when we snagged him from Brazil ends up offering $40 million in a regular spot? Although, again, you've got to think of the clubs that can offer him $40 million. He wouldn't be.
He probably wouldn't be interested.
He's going to start over Mahrez. I mean, is he? I mean, what? The club who's going to offer him $40 million is probably, I can't even name a club that would offer $40 million given his experience. So I think the hope is, I hope that next year becomes his breakout year. I had hoped for him that this season. Injuries, I guess, got in the way, and I'm willing to wait. I'm not deciding between the two because I want them both to stay.
I do. Yes, I want them both to stay. Gun to my head. I mean, if I had to answer the question, gun to my head, I'd say let Arteta go, and
which unfortunately happens a lot in this country. But
I think the potential, who's worth more financially to the club potentially, it has to be Gabriel Martinelli. His ceiling seems so high at the minute, And somebody actually made a very put in a good question to Arsblog earlier, and it's a bit of a strange one. It's going to be hard for me to reword it exact, so I'll sort of paraphrase it. They said, what do the club get out of training an inexperienced manager? So it isn't like a player, whereas if you take in a sort of rookie player, an inexperienced player, you're buying them cheap, and then you're giving them experience, playing them through up towards their peak, and then you're moving them on for like an inflated financial gain. But you don't get that with a coach. You don't sell a coach. So what are we actually getting? And that would be my argument in terms of that hypothetical dilemma between Martinelli and Arteta, is that at the minute, with the form that Mikel Arteta is producing as a manager, the results he's getting with this team, I'm pretty sure that the majority of high-level managers could come in and do an equal par or similar or possibly better job. Whereas I think the ceiling for Gabriel Martinelli is massive, in my opinion, from what I've seen of him so far.
What do you think about Tony's comment? I mean, younger, more active Sanchez. I think he's got the ability to be that.
I like the blend. The blend. Somebody says he's as if Luis Suarez and Sanchez fucked and had a baby, and that's Gabriel Martinelli. And that's...
First of all, now I've got that in my head.
Can't unsee that.
I'm trying to picture like which of the two of them would be on top.
It doesn't work that way.
Is it reverse? Is it reverse cowboy? Or I mean, like what is the position? But yeah,
they're docking, Mike. They're docking.
They're docking. I learned the meaning to that at the last Gooner Grab, by the way, from my good friend Charlie.
I've never been to a Gooner Grab. Real quick, I don't mean I can't imagine being down there with you.
It's a show. I actually wimp out. One night for one of the. I mean, I can only go like 1 or 2 nights in a row. I can't do 3. My body just terminates.
Yeah.
So like the third night of Goonagra was the big night of all of them, and I did an Owen exit, which otherwise called an Irish exit.
The old Irish goodbye.
I did the Irish goodbye, and I'll tell you 2 people specifically. My friend Tom from Richmond and Troops, the 2 of them called my hotel because they didn't see me leave. I mean, no one saw me leave. They called the hotel because it was they were just like, if Mike's not here right now, something bad must have happened to him. Called my hotel to have them do a welfare check on me. So I'm sleeping at 10 o'clock at night in the hotel with the do not disturb sign on, and people start banging on my door, and it was like the police trying to make sure I was okay. So anyway, that's Gooner Grau for you in a nutshell. But I digress.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah.
No, Martinelli. I think he is probably my third favorite player on this football team right now. And the first 2, and it might have been higher than that if he got regular playing time, because the other 2 are Saka and Tierney. But Martinelli has every ability to do. I'm one of his biggest backers. I love him. But we might be kind of one of these absence makes the heart grow fonder type of things, where the more he doesn't play, the better we think he is. And he's 19. He's a man-child. He's got that mentality, that wink that he gave Arteta when he came off earlier this season that a bunch of people picked up on, was maturity and gamesmanship beyond his years. So I think he's got the complete package. I think we probably need to be backing down a little bit on the whole, because we don't know the full story. We don't know why he's not playing.
The one I can't remember who made the comment in here. It might have been Max that said, or Owen, it might have been you that said Arteta really values training. He really, really puts an emphasis and a priority on how you train. And to me, it's kind of like this. I mean, you need to be able to do both. but training is like they're like, it's like the workout warrior. You know, the guy in the gym that you see, and he's just repping the piss out of everything, legs, arms, chest, the whole 9 yards. He's going crazy. And then you put him on any playing surface whatsoever in any sport, and he turns into like a
Tom Canton, where his ankles break.
Wow, Tom, I didn't say that. I just want you to know that.
Sure.
That was all.
He knows, man. He has no ligaments.
The ankles have always been. The ankles did break. That's right.
The guy that's just massive in the gym, you put him on a playing surface and he can't do shit. You're like, hey, kick that ball, and he goes like this. Yeah, he doesn't even know what you're telling him to do. So that's
not what I meant when I said Tom Cannon.
What school did you go to?
I mean, you know, you go to this guy, you're like, hey man, pat your head and rub your belly at the same time, and you give him he can't walk and chew gum at the same time. But you put him in the gym, he's a beast. You know, hand him a piece of gum and tell him to walk down the street.
So are you comparing him to Martinelli then, or is that the?
No, it was just a comment that it had something to do with Martinelli, but there you go. But somebody, I can't remember who it was, but basically made the comment that Arteta values how much he values training. And that could be that's a part of it, that Martinelli, even in training, isn't quite getting the message that Arteta is trying to get through to him.
And we know that he will make those decisions. I mean, what we see as the outcome doesn't always match what he'll see as the likely outcome from what he's seeing in a much more expansive exposure to these players. And a coach that is going to be so heavily on training and reward training and grasping of the concept he's trying to put out there, whatever that is, and there's a lot of questions about that. Someone who values that so strongly is going to come in for criticism on his personnel and substitution decisions, which is exactly what's happening with Arteta right now. But he's going to live by the sword, or he's going to die by the sword.
You're absolutely right there, yeah.
But it's fine to criticize a player's tactical discipline or positional knowledge when you're at a team like Man City, where you have Fernandinho or you have Raheem Sterling, who are students.
When Willian's being played instead of him. When
Willian and Pepe are running out of position, refusing to track back and not pressing, then that's where my issues lie. It's like, well, how tactical discipline does he really need to be better than this bunch?
We may be about to see Callum Chambers for the first time, making a run of games in a row. The same thing, it could be like one of those sushi things at the airport where it just, you see a piece of sushi that you like.
I've never seen that at the airport. I've only ever seen it in England. That's a great concept, by the way. I can't remember what the name of that restaurant is, but it's a great
completely hygienic.
They absolutely have that at Heathrow, and you see it and you're like, okay, well, that looks good. And then it's like another 20, 30 games before you see it again. But then you grab it and it's there. So I don't know. And that's not me defending Arteta's tactics. It's me hoping that he knows what he's doing. Because at this point, that's all we have. As he said after the game at Burnley, it is what it is.
I'm middle. I'm very much like Max said. I am middle of the road on him right now. I am utterly done defending him, and I've gone off on his tactics. Mike, you were a part of it. You saw how angry I was on Saturday in the post game.
I honestly don't really remember it very well, but yeah.
I am done defending him at this point. I'm not Arteta out. That's not to say that I'm Arteta out by any stretch. I'm not. I'm just done defending him. I need to see more at this point. I need to. So
I think going into next season as well, and this is where I'll leave it, is that it's like I said, I'm quite in the middle in terms of where I lie with Mikel Arteta. Make a joke out of that if you want, Mike. For me, he gets until
I'm too mature for that.
I'm not.
I said mature.
For me, he gets until Christmas next season, not the entirety of next season. An entire season is a very long time in football. But what I will say is that how we finish this season and the manner in which we do so will have massive implications as to how much positivity I go into next season with surrounding Mikel Arteta. And for me, by Christmas next season, we have to be making an extremely convincing push for top four minimum.
Yeah,
minimum, and it has to be convincing, not scraping by and depending on other teams to be having bad or we're only 5 points off this. Or it has to be convincing. The football brand has to be good, and it has to be a consistent push.
I think the question for everybody, that has patience with Arteta, or most everyone that has patience with Arteta, is not whether he should be given an unlimited amount of time. It's whether he should be given the rest of this season in a transfer window and see how the beginning of next season goes. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think anyone who backs Arteta right now pretty much feels that we can't be sitting here this time next season looking at the same thing. There's just absolutely no way about it. And I know we got to wrap up, but
just real quick, I've said this before. The thing to also take into consideration, he started this job just over a year ago. He came into the job just over a year ago in the middle of the season. 2 months into that, 3 months into that reign, 2.5 months in, it's cut short with COVID. We're off. We have no idea what's happening. He catches COVID himself, recovers. There's no training. There's no in-person anything. So he's had a very rough go of it to now in terms of being able to get the players in training and up to speed on his system, what he wants to do. Even the summer, even this past summer, no proper training or anything like that. It's very, well, what are we doing now? It's everything's very up in the air. So give him the end of this season, the summer. Let's see the players that we bring in, give him a proper summer training session, and then we start the next season. And yeah, I'm 100% on board with Christmas. If we're not in the conversation for top 4 by Christmas, he gone.
Yeah, you have to be. All right, so went a little bit long tonight, but it was a great conversation. Thanks to the departed, Andy and Max. We will miss you. Why I just did that, I have absolutely no idea. I'm Jewish. But
I'm rubbing off on you.
But Owen, it's lovely to spend another hour with you. We've been together more than I've been with my family this week, and I kind of like it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Tanner, great to have you on. Thank you for coming. Let us know again where we can find you and what kind of shows you're putting out there. It's not just you, is it?
No, Jess is still a part of it. She's still on the show. In fact, she just did a show today. She knows Arsenal over on BG Media. If you search Bearded Gooner on YouTube, it will come up right away. It's there. At the Bearded Gooner on Twitter. That's pretty much it. I got a post-game or a pre-game and post-game for every match. We do the tailgate, then we do Arsenal Aftermath afterward. Same old AFC USA every Tuesday night, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. And there will be more content coming, working on a couple of more shows in the coming weeks. Also have the Gooner View Premier League show that I do with Ryan from the Arsebros, where we basically just make predictions and kind of fuck off for a little bit. So
outstanding. Well, we're going to do that right now. Thanks. Please remember, Tony, I didn't see your link in the chat, so if you want to, if you want us to share it out, please DM me or tweet me, and I'll be happy to do that on Twitter. I think this is the last week to support St. Baldrick's. We had Andrew and Liam on a few weeks ago. They're doing the fundraiser. They're shaving their heads and their beards and their anuses to raise money to fight childhood cancer. They're not raising money for childhood cancer, because that would be a really douchey thing to do.
Yeah, really.
But stbaldricks.org/events/theflockshaves21, and you can see some bald men coming up after that, which we don't have enough of in the Arsenal podcasting world. So thanks again for joining us. This has been the Gooners podcast. It is what it is, and come on, you Gooners.